I'm here with Reese, the Program Director of CAN10. How are you going today, Reese?
Yeah, good, thanks. How you going?
Good, yeah. You've been touring the country, you've been advising people on
Yeah.
cannabis, the safe methods.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how you got into the industry and a bit about your expertise?
Yeah, sure. So I got into the industry in 2015, so I wrote my honours thesis on the political economy of
Wow.
American cannabis markets at Sydney University.
Very impressive.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I really got fascinated by the commercial side of the industry. And then immediately after that, I became the project manager and lead author on the first white paper on medicinal cannabis in Australia. It was published in 2016. And then since then, I've been involved in a few commercial projects on a consulting basis, and now I'm the program director for CAN10 Australia. So we're bringing the first full-scale medical cannabis education course to Melbourne in August and September this year.
Wow, so you've done a lot of study.
Yeah.
Many years involved to
Yeah.
get you to this level.
Yeah, well, you never stop learning, right? I spent a full year just reading journal article after journal article, reading book after book about anything I could get my hands on to do with cannabis.
A lot of theory.
Yeah, a lot of theory, a lot of history, a lot of sociology, a lot of politics. It's a fascinating. I think cannabis policy and drug policy in general is a really excellent window into a society.
Yeah.
I think how a society regulates and manages the way people use substances can tell you a lot about
Absolutely.
what that society's about.
And it's very empowering to be able to provide that education to some people that have been misinformed for many years.
Exactly.
And to be able to shine a bit of light on that area.
Right. Yeah.
That's very powerful.
Yeah.
So what have been some of your highlights, factoring that in?
Well, this tour's been great. Paul and
Yep.
Charlene flying me around Australia, talking about cannabis. It's nothing I love more.
Excellent.
Visiting the States for the first time earlier this year was pretty awesome. Got to meet some incredible people face to face. And I think people in the cannabis industry seem to be so welcoming and open. So I was just reaching out to people who didn't know me from Adam and saying, hey, do you want to meet up and have a coffee or whatever? And got to meet some incredible people in the States and incredible people in Australia. So just building those sort of social networks has been really valuable.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
A lot of networking, and you get to experience other people and their point of view.
Yeah.
And, that's all very positive.
Yeah.
Now, the regulations are very
Right.
tight around the plant.
Yep.
A lot of people feel like the doctor, their hands are tied.
Sure.
And they feel like there's not any hope in sight.
Yeah.
Now, can you offer a little bit of reassurance to some of these people that are struggling and battling? Some of them might have children with
Sure.
epilepsy.
Yeah. So I think definitely, and it's horrible to say this, in the long term, we'll definitely get there. We've got the right groundwork in place now. We will get to the point at which people expect us to get to. I personally believe. In the short term, it is hard, and it's gonna be hard for a while. The Australian government has said that it's going to regulate cannabis like any other medicine, and to a large extent that's true. However, there are a couple of ways in which that has been untrue, and the most obvious one is the duplication of federal regulations at the state level, unnecessary duplication of permission requirements, and of course the prohibition against special accessing Category A access for medical cannabis is an obvious one that needs to be reversed.
Treating it like a Schedule 1 narcotic is not the way to go.
Right. Well, I mean, even if we just treated cannabis like an unregistered Schedule 8 medicine, which would be hard enough, that would be better than the situation that we have at the moment.
Absolutely.
The situation we have at the moment is that if you're dying of cancer and you've got 2 weeks to live, your doctor can prescribe you literally any medicine in the world, registered or unregistered, except cannabis. On short-term notice without having to get a request from the federal government. And I think that's just flagrantly prohibitionist.
Absolutely, and I mean, you've got people, they're losing their jobs and they're using drug tests, and sometimes they feel like even if they do bring in a form of medical cannabis, it'll show up on saliva tests and they're going to lose their job, so they're going to end up suffering. And they're not even going to look into that avenue and wind up on a pharmaceutical route.
Yeah, well, it's a huge problem.
How can we avoid that?
Yeah, it's a huge problem, right? Because, I mean, it's been a massive issue in the States because cannabis is prohibited federally, and employment law is a federal law to a large extent in the States. So even if you're in a state that has legal medical access and you test positive for cannabis use because you have a medical condition, you can still be fired lawfully for testing positive for cannabis. Now, thankfully in Australia, that won't necessarily be the case. We get to see how it'll sort of shape up. What I'm really concerned about at the moment is drug driving tests, for example, right? You test positive for cannabis use, being pulled over for a random drug test. You used your medicine this morning, like your doctor prescribed you, you're not inhibited, you get charged with drug driving. That's got to change. So I know the Lambert Initiative at Sydney University is doing some research into that at the moment, which is important. but the tests they have at the moment just aren't accurate enough to test for inebriation or inhibition. So we'll see how that sort of pans out.
And you can see the avenue they're leaning towards the tincture and the oil as the main two components that you're going to use for your medicine.
Right.
And they're trying to like really steer away from smoking of any dried plant material. And they say, oh, it may cause a high.
Right.
Like that's an absolutely horrible thing.
Yeah.
I mean, when will there be a dispensary provided? You get your script from your doctor, you take it to your dispensary, and you can purchase your smoke from there.
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I think for many people, most of the time, non-smokable or non-vaporizable form is probably appropriate. There are definitely cases in which people need, for things like breakthrough pain or breakthrough seizures, where they need
instant relief.
An instant relief. And I think vaporizing over smoking is obviously more medically better and also more politically acceptable.
For your respiratory system.
Exactly, yeah. So I think, and we're seeing some really interesting technology come out around medical devices that allow, because that's always been the problem with non-tincture forms of dosage, is that you get really variable titration. You can't really control precisely enough exactly how much medicine you're getting. So with the vaporizer technology coming out of places like Israel and North America, we'll get those registered as medical devices through the Federal Health Department.
Titrate that dose.
Exactly. That's where I think, I don't think that smokable or vaporizable forms of cannabis will ever be a huge part of the medical side of cannabis in Australia, but they do have a role to play, and I'd like to see that happen.
And you'll be able to take your card down to your dispensary and they can issue with the medicine that you need and give you support as well.
Well, dispensaries for medical cannabis in Australia probably won't ever exist.
Really? You'd go as far as saying that?
I would say that, yeah. I think if we ever move towards social use or adult use, the dispensary model would be similar to, say, like the bottle store model.
Yep.
But as far as the medical access goes, we're using our established medical access systems, which look very similar to other medicines. So instead of going to your dispensary, you'd go to your pharmacist.
Right.
If it ever comes to the point where adults are allowed to purchase cannabis
for recreational reasons,
then I think dispensaries would be a very appropriate way to manage that, and that would be a very likely way to do it. As far as medical access goes, I would be confident in saying that would probably never happen in Australia.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are some of the obstacles that we've got to tackle before we can get this across the line for the patients?
Sure. So a lot of these obstacles will be solved in time, once again, which is not great for people who need it now. I understand it's really tricky. But the medical research we're doing in Australia is world-class, groundbreaking stuff that's never been done properly in this way before. So that's going to help. Getting domestic supply up and running will happen in the next couple of years, and that'll help. Patient access, obviously, is a huge issue, and that needs to be fixed. So recently in Federal Parliament, there's been discussions about Special Access Scheme Category A being changed. That didn't get up, unfortunately, recently, even though it had the support of Labor and the Greens. There was some minor parties and, of course, the Liberal Party that didn't support that particular version of the bill. I hear that it's being amended and will be presented again, so hopefully we'll get that across the line, and that'll really help people who are in desperate need now to access unregistered cannabis products that can be imported from overseas.
If someone was curious to the benefits, maybe cannabis might be able to help them, they're not sure, would they be able to speak to their doctor about that now, or what would you say?
Yeah, look, ideally, yes, go to your doctor.
Talk to your GP.
If your GP doesn't know, bring along some material.
Yep.
There are great resources online that from authentic, scientific sources that will convince doctors. The National Academies of Sciences report that came out earlier this year from the States is one. You can jump on the United in Compassion website. They've got some awesome resources up there as well. Bring it along to your doctor and say, hey, look, this is where I'm at. This is what we've got. Do you know about this? If not, why not? And if you don't know, who can I see who does? Yeah.
And if they always encourage their friends and families to do the same, talk to your doctor, then it'll take it from out of the shadows and into the light.
Yeah, it's a critical, it'll grow exponentially.
Yeah.
So at the moment it's piece by piece, one doctor at a time, but eventually it'll get to a critical mass and accelerate, and then we'll be where we need to be.
I'm very impressed with the work that you've been doing, Reece.
Thank you.
Keep up with the movement, and let's hope many breakthroughs come your way.
Thanks very much.
Terrific. Good on you.